Looking at
Yeah,
you?
look at it.
Okay.
Yeah. This camera not there.
Right,
Just,
okay.
Yeah. All right. So introduce yourself and tell us what you did.
So my name is Mikaeli Tony. I am 24 years of age. I attended Presentation College San Fernando, and I recently built the first Cape AI chatbot in the Caribbean.
Tell us what a Cape AI chatbot is.
So essentially, a Cape AI chatbot is a tool that allows students to dig into the large database of information that's related to Cape. So instead of them going through hours of PDFs or videos or anything of the sort, we downloaded that into one spot, and you simply ask questions to the chatbot, and it retrieves that information for you in a very concise and quick manner.
And what gave you the idea to create this Cape AI chatbot?
So in 2018, I took the Caribbean on Cape, and I wanted to give back to the Cape community in some form. But my drive was to provide the most amount of value to the most amount of students. But obviously, it became bottlenecked by my time, by my knowledge. I'm a human at the end of the day. And being able to provide the most amount of value to the most amount of students, the only way that was possible was to use some form of computerization. So I was into computer science and the growing technology of AI. So one night I was just thinking about how could I provide the most value to the most amount of students, and then it just came to me. I was like, okay, I could make a chatbot with all of this information on it so students could extract it. So it's no longer hindered by time or my human constraints. All of the information is there available at the click of a button, at the type of a finger. So that's how the idea came about, just basically going along the lines of how can I provide the most amount of value to the most amount of students with the least amount of effort.
Walk us through the process going from your idea to actually making the chatbot what it is now.
So it actually started off as the traditional idea of doing lessons. So when I started that off, I generated demand because of my achievements in the past. But because of the vast amount of subjects that CAPE offers, I wasn't able to provide high quality information to all these students. So let's say there are 5 subjects that I did, there are about 10 to 15 subjects at CAPE. So these students would be interested in it, and I wanted to provide value to them. And even for the subjects that I could have provided value to them in, I could either do one-to-one or one-to-many. And with the one-to-one setting, I could provide a lot of value, but I am hindered by the time of one-to-one. With one-to-many, yes, I could communicate with a lot of students at once, but no student is getting individualized attention. And students are all different. They have different needs, they have different problems that need to be solved. So I started off doing the lessons route, and then I realized I'm still not achieving the goal of the goal of providing the most value to the most amount of students. I was still bottlenecked by that model. So I decided to make a video course, and I pre-recorded lectures, tried to give it to the students, and then I realized this still doesn't have value because it's a pre-recorded lecture. It's no different to a YouTube video that you could look at. I wanted something more personalized, something that would give you a response that is suited for you in your specific situation, because I understood my struggles through CAPE. So from traditional lessons model to then trying the video course to then saying, okay, this video course is simply compiling the information and allowing the students to extract it. How can I make the extraction of the information more efficiently? So then I transferred over to just building a chatbot, because it's way more tailored. You just ask it a specific question, and it will give you answers specific to the question you asked. Or you could even ask it general questions. So it transferred from traditional lessons model to new age video course to futuristic AI chatbot. Yeah.
You mentioned your struggles during CAPE. You want to share what those struggles were like and how you overcame those struggles?
Sure. So during CAPE, I did 5 subjects as opposed to 4, which is the usual thing, because I just wanted to push myself. One of the major struggles I had was going through all the information and finding out what was relevant. Because they're given a syllabus with, let's say, over 180 pages worth of information, but realistically in the exam, they're only going to ask you for about 10% of that information. So the problem for me was sifting through that information and finding the important information, as well as learning enough so that I could cover all the bases for what comes in the exam. So time was the biggest constraint during CAPE. It wasn't the ability to retain information, it was just the time in which you have to consume all of the information that you're given. So how I overcame that was essentially going straight to the source. The variable that determines how well you do at CAPE is how well you write the exam. So what I focused on is past papers and answering questions for the exam, because you're basically training yourself to do the thing that moves the needle, which is the grade. Because you could study however well and how many other pages. If you study 175 pages and then the 5 pages of the 180 that you didn't read comes in the exam, you won't do well in the exam. So it isn't about how much you study, it's about what exactly you studied. So I simply focused on past papers to help basically reduce the constraint of time and just be more efficient in terms of consuming information. And that just really came down to discipline and just trusting the process, you know, because sometimes you'd have doubts where it's like, okay, am I doing enough? I always had that doubt, but it's just about trusting the process and doing what is required to basically build your knowledge to the point where you feel comfortable enough to write the exam.
This was no easy feat. Did you do it alone, or did you have help somewhere along the way?
Yeah, definitely had help along the way. I had friends, like I had brothers in presentation college who would help me out. I also had friends outside of my school that I would study with sometimes. I also leaned on my spiritual life a lot during that time. I used to pray a lot. So I just had the foundation of spirituality, family, and friends. Those were like the main things that would help me, throughout CAPE. Yeah.
What is some feedback you've gotten from people who have used the AI chatbot, and how has it benefited other people?
The feedback that I've gotten has generally been, I wouldn't say the word shock, but a lot of people are blown away by it because it's the first of its kind and it's incomparable to anything else that is on the market right now for CAPE. Another thing that they would say is the speed in which they're able to get responses and the ability to have tailor-made questions to them, because you could be very specific with the questions you ask, which isn't something you could do on your own with the level of time. So for you to go through large amounts of information and just extract specific contextual pieces of information, it takes a lot of time. So it saves that time. Another thing that people like too is the accessibility to it. So it's not only limited to your computer, you could use it on your phone. So a lot of people like that, and they also really like the IA aspect of it. So the internal assessment, which is something every student has to do at CAPE, the chatbot is able to help them a lot with that, which is another thing that used to take up a lot of time during CAPE studies. So what they really do like is the time, how much time it saves them. So they were really kind of blown away by just how novel it is. It's the first time they've seen something like it, and it really does help with their general CAPE journey. Yeah.
And how do you see it benefiting the current and the future generations of CAPE students?
So in terms of the current generation, I think because of the novelty of it, it gives them an edge compared to other students. In the future, when it becomes more mass market and more people have access to it, I think it would get to the point where the more people that use it, the better it becomes because of how much data it collects. It's able to grow with the students in the sense of the more students that ask they ask the chatbot questions, it's able to have a better understanding of the type of questions and the framings that students would use. So I think the current students will actually help in the future students by using the technology, because as more data is put into the technology, it gets better over time. So the current students will benefit from the novelty, and the future students would benefit from the growth that the chatbot is able to have between now and when the future students use it.
Any plans to do something similar for SEA level and CSEC level?
Yeah, 100%. Once the CAPE companion chatbot reaches around 500 to 1,000 users, I definitely plan on branching into CSEC and SEA. Actually, it's easier to do the CSEC and SEA because of it's less complex than the CAPE syllabus. However, my specialty was in CAPE. That's where I excelled the most. So I just wanted to create a product that was a field that I have more personal experience with. So definitely looking to branch into CSEC and SEA at some point, yeah.
For a young person looking on who, wants to achieve things to the level that you have, what advice would you give them as pertains to pursuing your dream and doing something that is big picture, not that doesn't only benefit the individual themselves, but brings the highest value to the largest number of people as you are pursuing?
I say, in terms of practical things you could do, I would say taking time away from all the noise of the world. Come off the social media, the TV, the Netflix series. Just kind of block out the noise. Meditate, pray, whatever that may be. Go for a run, but just get silent. And then that inner voice would kind of give you the guidance on, okay, this is the path I should take. That's in terms of what you should do. In terms of staying on the path for long enough to achieve the goal, it really just comes down to discipline. And to an extent, it also comes down to the bigger the dream you have and the more people you desire to help, the more driven you would be to achieve that goal. The more selfish your goal is, for me personally, the more selfish the goal is for me, the less driven I am for it. The more selfless the goal is, the more driven I am for it, because it's no longer for me. If I don't feel like waking up and doing the work, I am not the person who suffers from that. Other people suffer because of my inability to show up and do the work. So I would say pick a goal that's more selfless, and I think that would come naturally when you get quiet and you go within and just persevere through the hard times. That growth happens through pain and discomfort, and I would say it's almost guaranteed to be hard because you're paving a new path if you're doing anything great. It's just a matter of accepting that, yes, this is going to be hard, but this is what is required to achieve the level of success I want to achieve. And once you take that approach, the options become binary. It's either you achieve the goal, you stick to it for long enough to achieve the goal, or you quit before you achieve it. But it's really up to you. You decide whether you stick to it for long enough to achieve the goal. So that's the approach I use personally for big things like this.
Good. Yeah.